The concept of MTV's Catfish is in itself shocking. These are people who have dated for years, fallen in love, even gotten engaged all online without ever meeting, and often even seeing the person live. Given that's our baseline, the insanity barometer can only go up from there. And oh, it has. Nev and his team traveled around the US for 5 years trying to mend broken hearts and help others get even. You'd think by now no one would dream about trying to fool someone over the internet in fear of this crew turning up at their door. But nope, the catfishing era is still going strong, and it's one of our favorite reality shows. Here are just some of the most insane and jaw-dropping Catfish TV show episodes so far.
We have the interest in the same guy. Have you got a tattoo for him?
Yeah.
Whoa.
But this guy doesn't seem legit.
Number 7. Dejay, Malik, and Josiah. There are no love triangles as entertaining as those on Catfish. Dejay and Malik have both been off-again and on-again relationships with Josiah, an elusive catfish living in Philadelphia. Dejay has been dating Josiah for 7 years, though they've never met, and Josiah has already lied about his appearance. When Nev and Max also receive a letter from Malik about Josiah, they realize that both men are being catfished by him and should confront him together. Josiah ends up being who he says he is, but comes to meet his boyfriends with guns blazing. This interview is full of classic one-liners, including "this boy got more issues than Vogue," and dramatic screaming scenes. Perfect aspects of reality television.
I'm kind of embarrassed at the same time because now, like, you're embarrassed, I'm embarrassed, you're...
Number 6. Kiona and Bow Wow. This episode will never get old. Kiona fell in love with Bow Wow, as in the rapper, after she messaged him through a Facebook fan page. While Kiona was skeptical about her online lover actually being Bow Wow, she became 60% convinced when he sent her $10,000 through his assistant, Larry Brown. Suffice it to say, Bow Wow doesn't have an assistant named Larry Brown, and Kiona's catfish wasn't the famous rapper. When Max, Nev, and Kiona drove 10 hours to Atlanta to meet Bow Wow, they discover that it's really D Pimpin', an infamous rapper who hoarded loan money from her relatives to send the large sum to her online boo. Did anyone really think it would actually be Bow Wow? D Pimpin' is hilarious because she's not apologetic about catfishing Kiona. After all, we've all done crazy things for love, right? What is surprising, though, is that her motivation is she likes tricking straight girls into thinking she's a guy, even when having intercourse. The best part of this entire saga is that the real Bow Wow invited D Pimpin' and Kiona on 106 and Park, and finally fulfilled Kiona's childhood dreams of meeting him.
I am the king catfish.
You're really not.
I am.
I'm done here. I'm done. I'm done.
Number 5. John and Kelsey. John had met Kelsey Beelzebub in a psychology chat room, had only heard her voice once, and had never video chatted. She claimed to have body dysmorphic disorder. 2 others from the same chat room, named Ellie and Adam, were in a similar relationship and had also never met. But John and Kelsey had a very close relationship, and even shared some very private pictures. After Kelsey sent Nev, Max, and John to a fake address, they tracked her down at a murky casino. She was actually Adam from the chat room, who admitted he took pride in catfishing others, having done it to about 40 people in total. He did it to John to keep him away from Ellie, who was real. Max was pissed. The guy is such a loser that he spends his days trying to gamble for $60 as a living. Adam apologized for his behavior and confessed all to Ellie via Skype. He later moved to LA, deactivated the Kelsey profile, and continued his relationship with Ellie, despite all of that weirdness. John forgave Adam and grew close to a female friend in Illinois. Could this be a happy ever after?
No. I've been talking to him for 3 years,
That's a long...
and I've been with him 3 years. Talk to him, be with him, talk to him, be with him.
Number 4. Antoine and Tony. There will never be a greater moment on Catfish than the "you should have never called me a fat ass, Kelly Price" line. Being fat-shamed was Carmen's motivation for catfishing her cousin, Antoine, for more than 3 years. Antoine didn't call on the Catfish crew for help, but his cousin Carmen did because she thought that Antoine was being played and needed to find out the truth about Tony, so she contacted the show. Carmen says that she's convinced Tony is lying to Antoine and says that Antoine needs to find out the truth because she doesn't want him getting hurt. Antoine's opinion of Carmen's meddling is that she's a hater, but he still considers his cousin to be his best friend. Antoine called up a sexy chat line and got acquainted with Tony. The two then engaged in a relationship that has lasted 3 years thus far, but the two of them don't even know what each other look like. Tony says he's from Atlanta, but he called Antoine from a Cincinnati phone number. After their first phone call, Tony called Antoine from a private phone number, which Catfish host Nev thought was very suspicious. When trying to track down Tony, the Catfish crew is led to an abandoned house in what appears to be a rundown neighborhood. As they try to investigate their surroundings, they don't know what to make of the boarded up house. After visiting 3 different addresses in search of Tony, and noticing this wild goose chase wasn't ending anytime soon, Carmen finally confesses in a perfect villain monologue that they were never going to find Tony because she was Tony. It was literal perfection that can never be replicated. Antoine becomes furious as the crew is also angry. Carmen thinks it's hilarious and great payback for Antoine always making fun of her to people. When Max Joseph asks Carmen what voice she uses to talk to Antoine, she lowers her tone and puts on her Tony voice.
Just send her money.
Yeah. How much? A couple thousand, maybe.
What? Jesus.
Number 3. Lauren and Derek. Lauren and Derek met on MySpace 8 years before the episode, and he had got her through a lot of tough times and supported her after she had a baby with an ex-boyfriend. She was convinced he was the man she was meant to be with, but they had never met or even Skyped once. Nev and Max were dubious. Lauren knew that Derek is the man of her dreams and she couldn't wait to take the next step with him. All of it was true. Derek was exactly who he said he was all that time, and they started a relationship together, and he instantly bonded with her 3-year-old son. He was just not that great with technology. It was the most joyous and soppy moment in Catfish history. In a special episode, Derek proposed to Lauren and she excitedly accepted, something that rarely happens on the show. However, the fairy tale came to an end in 2014 as the pair broke up. Reports claim she had got back together with the father of her child. Love doesn't exist.
I'm like shaking right now.
Take a little tissue here so you
Like,
yeah, clean her up, will ya?
Number 2, Whitney and Bray. Every once in a while, Nev and Max get tricked by those they're trying to help. Whitney, in this instance, is the catfish, though she tells the co-host that she doesn't like being lied to. The 27-year-old fast food worker has fallen in love with Bray, a woman who lives in California, but she can't afford to travel from New York to the West Coast to visit her. Whitney contacted the show concerning her long-distance romance with Bray. If you don't know US geography that well, they live on opposite sides of the country. After meeting on a dating site, they had fallen in love and talked regularly, but all signs were pointing to a classic catfish. Bray was an exotic dancer, had only ever sent Whitney 2 pictures of herself, and couldn't video chat with Whitney because she didn't have Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, is this 2002? For some reason, Whitney had put up with this for 4 years. And money was tight, meaning she couldn't afford to visit Bray herself. Wanting answers, Whitney turned to Catfish, in the hope she would find out Bray was who she said she was, because Whitney hated liars and couldn't stress this point enough. She hated the duplicity and couldn't stand deceit. She disliked dishonesty and people being two-faced. Straight up, she thought all liars should be rounded up and fired off in a rocket to the sun. A quick search revealed that Bray's phone number was an internet one, meaning she had lied to Whitney about not having Wi-Fi and therefore not being able to video chat, when in fact, she'd been using Wi-Fi to text Whitney that she didn't have Wi-Fi. The nerve. Next, they searched for Bray's email, which threw up a Twitter account in California, but with pictures of a different girl. An image search of the photos Whitney had provided led them to multiple profiles of a girl called Cash. Max theorized that the two girls might know each other as they both appeared to be in Los Angeles. Nev contacted Cash, who was well aware that someone else was using her photos. It was her close friend Bray, who didn't want anyone to know what she looked like, so Cash agreed she could use her pictures. In a further twist, Cash revealed that Whitney and Bray were definitely friends on Facebook, but Bray used the name Luscious Bee. Using the login details Whitney had willingly, but probably stupidly given up, Nev trawled Brittany's messages like a suspicious wife and uncovered pages of conversations between Whitney and Bray, some as recent as the previous week before they met her, and they appeared to show that the two women had actually video chatted. Catfish had finally been catfished, but they had forgotten to let Cash know what they were up to. These two had concocted a plan that Whitney will appear on Catfish, convince Nev and Max that she's being deceived, and have the show pay for them to finally meet in person after talking online for 4 years. Whitney finally confesses to everything, and the show still sends her to California to meet Bray. Whitney is Catfish's version of Joanne the Scammer, and she got away with it. Number 1. Lucille and Kid Cole. While most Catfish episodes focus on romantic couples, Lucille and Kid Cole were the first guests who were entangled in a financial scam. Kid Cole, an alleged record producer signed to Kanye West's Good music label, befriended Lucille, a fan based in Washington, D.C., to help him coordinate a trip there. She paid for hotel rooms, transportation, and private security with the promise that Kid Cole's manager, Miguel, would reimburse all the expenses. As soon as Kid Cole left DC, his manager disappeared and left Lucille with bills that she was unable to cover. In the course of their investigation, Max and Nev discovered that Kid Cole had scammed multiple people, including Loretta, an independent limousine driver who also arranged transportation for him. He was also under investigation for scamming other people. When Lucille, Nev, and Max confront Kid Cole, he acts very casually, leading Nev to grab his phone and toss it into a river. After the Catfish producers promise him a new phone, Kid Cole agrees to arrange a studio session to prove he's a producer. That's a bust too. Inevitably, Kid Cole confesses that he's been homeless and lies to cover up his lack of confidence. But after the episode ends, it becomes clear that Kid Cole hasn't learned anything. Apparently, he produced Beyoncé's Drunken Love and was later sentenced to 21 months in prison for making false terroristic threats. Where do the lies end? Where does the truth begin?